There's something men have been saying for years, in comment sections, in private conversations, in the quiet frustration of their own minds. They've been saying that women, particularly young, attractive women, live in a different reality. A reality where validation falls from the sky like rain, where emotional support appears on demand, where the world conspires to make life just a little bit easier, in ways that are invisible to everyone except the men who don't receive the same treatment. And for years, men have been told they're wrong, they're bitter, they're jealous, they're making excuses for their own failures. The mainstream narrative says women have it harder, women face discrimination, women are objectified, women struggle in ways men can't understand, and there's truth in some of that. But there's also a massive blind spot, a reality that nobody wants to acknowledge, because acknowledging it would upset too many comfortable assumptions. Today we're going to talk about the privilege that modern women secretly live with. Not economic privilege, although that exists in certain forms, not legal privilege, although arguments can be made there too, but something more subtle, more pervasive, more psychologically significant. The privilege of constant social validation, the privilege of attention, the privilege of living inside a feedback loop that tells you every single day that you matter, that you're wanted, that you're enough. This isn't an attack, this is an observation. And by the end of this video, both men and women will understand something about modern life that's been hiding in plain sight. Let me start with what actually happens when an attractive woman exists on social media. She posts a photo. Nothing special. Maybe a selfie, maybe a casual shot from her day. Within minutes, the likes start rolling in. Then the comments. Beautiful. Stunning. Queen. Fire emojis. Heart emojis. The algorithm picks it up, pushes it further. More likes, more comments. By the end of the day, she's received more positive feedback than some men get in a month. And this isn't a one-time event. This is daily, weekly, constant. Every time she opens her phone, there's a little hit of validation waiting for her. Someone thought she was attractive enough to double tap. Someone took the time to write something nice. Someone somewhere is thinking about her right now. The phone buzzes. Another like, another comment. Another tiny dopamine hit confirming that yes, she matters. Now let me describe what happens when an average man exists on social media. He posts a photo, same effort, same attempt to share his life, and nothing. Maybe a few likes from friends, maybe a comment from his mum. The algorithm ignores him because there's no engagement to amplify. His post dies in obscurity, seen by a handful of people who scrolled past without stopping. No validation, no confirmation, just silence. This isn't a minor difference. This is two completely different psychological realities. She lives in a world where approval is ambient, constant, taken for granted. He lives in a world where approval must be earned, fought for, and is never guaranteed. She wakes up to notifications that make her feel wanted. He wakes up to an inbox that reminds him he's invisible. And here's what men understand that nobody wants to admit. That constant validation isn't just nice. It's not just a pleasant bonus. It fundamentally changes how you experience life. When you receive regular confirmation that you're valued, your baseline psychology shifts. You walk differently, you speak differently, you expect differently. You develop a cushion of self-worth that absorbs life's inevitable blows. When something bad happens, you have reserves of validation to draw from. The world has told you over and over that you're enough. So setbacks feel temporary, manageable, survivable. Men don't have that cushion. When life hits a man, he's absorbing the blow with nothing behind him. No accumulated validation to soften the impact. No reserves of "you're amazing" to counteract the "you failed." He has to generate his own self-worth internally, from scratch, with no external reinforcement. And while that builds certain kinds of strength, it also creates a fundamentally harder psychological existence. Let me give you an example. Imagine a woman has a bad day at work. Her boss criticized her. A project fell through. She feels low. What happens when she gets home? She opens Instagram. There are the likes. There are the comments. There's the DM from a guy she matched with saying she seems really cool. There's the notification that her story was viewed 300 times. Within minutes, the bad day is counterbalanced. The world is still telling her she matters, even if her boss didn't. Now imagine a man has the same bad day. Same criticism, same failed project. He gets home, he opens his phone, nothing. no validation waiting, no chorus of approval to counteract the failure. He sits with the feeling unmediated, raw. He has to process it alone, using only internal resources. The bad day stays bad. It might even spiral, because there's no external force pushing back against the negative self-talk. This is the privilege men have been pointing at. Not money, not opportunity, but the constant, ambient, taken for granted experience of being told you're valuable. Women swim in this like fish swim in water. They don't even notice it because it's always been there. But men notice, because they're standing on the shore watching, wondering what that must feel like. Now let me talk about what this validation does over time, because it's not just about feeling good in the moment. It shapes life decisions in profound ways. When you receive constant confirmation that you're desirable, you develop a sense that time is on your side. You don't feel urgency. Why would you? The attention keeps coming. The options keep appearing. Every year, there are more likes, more comments, more DMs from interested men. The feedback loop says, you're in demand. You have value. There's no rush. This creates what I call the illusion of endless time. A woman at 25 feels like she has forever. A woman at 28 still feels like she has forever. Even at 32, the attention is still coming, maybe slightly reduced but still present. The algorithm hasn't abandoned her yet. Men still slide into her DMs. The validation continues, and with it the sense that she can delay major life decisions indefinitely. So she delays. She focuses on her career. She travels. She finds herself. She dates casually without committing, because why commit when options are abundant? She thinks about marriage and family as things for someday, a someday that feels distant because the present is so full of confirmation that she's doing fine. But here's what the validation doesn't tell her. Biological reality doesn't care about Instagram likes. The fertility window doesn't check her follower count. The relationship market operates on different rules than the attention market. And by the time she realizes that the attention was a misleading signal, by the time she understands that likes don't translate to commitment, that DMs don't translate to husbands, that being desired doesn't mean being chosen, years have passed. Important years. Years that can't be recovered. I've seen this pattern hundreds of times. A woman coasting on validation through her 20s, assuming she can settle down whenever she wants, finally decides at 34 that she's ready for something serious. And she discovers, with genuine shock, that the market has changed. The men she wants, the established, successful, commitment-ready men, they're dating younger women now. The validation that once felt infinite has started to thin. The options that once seemed endless have quietly narrowed. And she feels betrayed. By who? By what? She can't quite articulate it. But the truth is, she was betrayed by the illusion. The constant attention told her she was winning when she was actually spending. It told her she had time when time was running out. It gave her a false sense of security that prevented her from making decisions while she had maximum leverage. Men don't experience this same illusion. For men, the world is stingy with validation from the start. No one is liking your selfies and making you feel desired. No one is sliding into your DMs confirming your options. You know from early adulthood that you have to build value because value isn't given. You know that time matters because no one is reassuring you that it doesn't. The absence of external validation forces a kind of realism that the presence of validation delays. This might be why men, on average, seem more aware of the need to build careers, accumulate resources, and position themselves strategically for the future. It's not that men are smarter or more disciplined. It's that men don't have a cushion of attention telling them they can relax. The pressure is felt immediately, so the response comes earlier. Now let me talk about what constant validation does to character, because this is where things get uncomfortable. When you're told every single day that you're amazing, beautiful, special, worthy of attention, what happens to your ego? It inflates. Not dramatically, not overnight, but gradually, steadily. The external feedback seeps in and becomes internal belief. You start to think on some level that you actually are more special than others, that you actually do deserve more, that the preferential treatment you receive is simply the natural order of things. This is how entitlement develops, not through intentional arrogance, but through environmental conditioning. When everyone treats you like you're exceptional, you start to believe you're exceptional. When men compete for your attention, you start to expect men to compete for your attention. When doors open effortlessly, you start to assume doors should open effortlessly. The privilege becomes invisible to you because it's all you've ever known, and then something interesting happens in relationships. Women conditioned by constant validation often bring unconscious expectations that men find baffling. She expects him to pursue, to prove himself, to demonstrate value, because that's what men have always done with her. She expects admiration to flow in her direction because admiration has always flowed in her direction. When it doesn't, when a man treats her as an equal rather than a prize, something feels wrong to her. She might not be able to articulate why, but it feels like disrespect. This is the entitlement that men sense and struggle to name. It's not that she's consciously arrogant. It's that she's been shaped by a lifetime of lopsided feedback into someone who genuinely doesn't understand what equal treatment feels like. She's been so elevated by attention that equality feels like demotion. Let me contrast this with what I've observed about genuinely humble women, because they exist, and they stand out precisely because they're so rare. Every now and then, you meet a woman who is objectively attractive but seems genuinely unaware of it. Not performing humility, actually humble. She doesn't expect doors to open. She doesn't assume male attention is her right. She treats people well not because she's strategizing, but because it doesn't occur to her that she's entitled to special treatment. These women are remarkable precisely because they escaped the conditioning. Maybe they grew up in environments where appearance wasn't emphasized. Maybe they developed their identity around something other than attractiveness. Maybe they just have the rare psychological constitution that resists ego inflation. Whatever the reason, they didn't internalize the validation, and the result is a quality of character that's visible immediately and valued deeply. Men can sense the difference instantly. A humble, beautiful woman feels fundamentally different from an entitled one. The humble one is easy to be around. The entitled one creates constant low-level stress. The humble one treats relationships as partnerships. The entitled one treats relationships as performances where she's the star. The humble one is grateful. The entitled one is expectant. And here's the tragedy. The entitled woman usually has no idea. She thinks her expectations are normal because within her reality they are normal. She's never been told otherwise. The world has catered to her for so long that catering feels like baseline. She'll read this and think, that's not me. But the very fact that she can't see it is proof that it is her. Let me talk about what social media has done to amplify all of this. Because the dynamic I'm describing isn't new. Attractive women have always received more attention than others. But social media has poured gasoline on the fire. Before Instagram, an attractive woman received validation in person, at parties, at work, walking down the street. This was significant, but limited. She could only be in so many places, interact with so many people. The validation was bounded by physical reality. Now she carries a validation machine in her pocket. She can receive confirmation of her desirability from thousands of people across the world at any moment. The scale has exploded. The feedback is instant and constant. She never has to wonder if she's attractive because her phone tells her every few hours. The cushion of validation that once came from occasional compliments now comes from a fire hose of digital approval. And this creates a power imbalance in dating that neither side fully understands. She walks into a date with 500 recent notifications telling her she's wanted. He walks in with whatever internal confidence he's managed to build from scratch. She's been pre-warmed by attention. He's starting cold. She has abundance. He has scarcity. The psychological positions are completely unequal before a single word is exchanged. This is why modern dating feels so broken for men. They're not competing against the guy across the table. They're competing against a phone full of validation that tells her she has infinite options. They're fighting for attention from someone who's drowning in attention. They're trying to be